This is Working for Progress, a podcast that connects us through conversations about how we craft our working lives and make progress. We'll be joined by our communities from Tribe Porty and Keystone. Tribe Porty is a community co-working space and creative hub. We are full of entrepreneurs, social enterprises, freelancers, charities and SMEs. Keystone is the other social enterprise which supports women to reimagine their working lives. We do this by providing a holistic approach to business through courses, programs, mentoring, group coaching and events.
Welcome to today's conversation. I'm Alice, the Community Manager at Tribe Porty.
And I'm Dani, Founder and Director of both Tribe Porty and Keystone.
Here at Working for Progress, we're all about connecting good people, sharing their stories, their challenges, and the progress they make for themselves and for others. We hope this podcast challenges your ways of thinking and inspires you to work for progress.
Working for Progress starts with simple pleasures, finishes in awe, and meanders through career journeys in between. Today we welcome Chris Hellawell. Chris is the director of the Edinburgh Tool Library, an organisation that aims to create resilient communities by harnessing the wealth of resources that already exist within those communities. This includes tools, equipment, space, volunteers, skills and knowledge. Since their beginning in 2015, the Edinburgh Tool Library has saved their members over £2 million and supported over 100 community groups and charities through their outreach programmes. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and spending your time with us. We're going to make it really easy and start out with your 5 simple pleasures.
Sorry, you said really easy.
Yep. Don't think too hard.
Quick fire. Football, number 1. Children, number 2, which I should have put at number 1. This isn't recorded, is it?
I can switch it around in editing as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No, I 5 is challenging. Generally, I think, I mean, it's just it sounds like a really crap CV where it's like, oh, I like socializing and
that's okay.
I like spending time with friends. I like getting out into nature and we've got a little escape place to escape to with the family. I enjoy being there and quiet, which isn't compatible with number 2. So
I was going to say, if you don't mention like the forest or something in that outfit you're wearing, then
trees,
no one can see Chris, but he looks like a proper lumberjack. I think that's 4, but you finished. Yeah.
I don't want to devalue the top 4 by putting in something that I only quite like.
That's quite all right. I mean, family are big ones. I'll let you slide on the football, I guess. Be good to hear more about your work and how the values that you live by, or maybe you want to start with telling us your top 3 values or a value that you is essential to who you are.
I guess I my one of my big influences is my dad, and he always was he was a headmaster, and sort of like a lot of young boys sort of look up to dad, and he was always very fair. He was like my headmaster at school.
He was your headmaster?
He was my headmaster at school. My mum was my headmistress when I was at primary school, and then I moved to my dad's school. But the idea of fairness was always like super strong from him, because he not only wanted to be fair, but also to be seen to be being fair to, not preferential treatment, all the rest of it. So I think, when I see a lack of fairness, that gets my blood boiling, but also it's something that I think is really important in some of the work I do, and the judgments I sort of instinctively make about people or other projects or things I want to get involved in or put my time to is about. I think it's really important that there's some sort of sense of fairness behind that, and giving people opportunities that they might have been that haven't been available to them because of an unfair system or something that's out with of their sort of control. So I think that's something that's super important to me. I think kind of community, again, I'm assuming we'll go on to talk about what I do and things, but that sense of community and building a community for people, and having that community around you can do for people on a sort of personal level, I think is super important. I mean, I think, you can boil everything down. You know, there's the two very broad things: community and fairness. So I think,
that makes a lot of sense to me. In knowing a little bit about the Tool Library, and you and how you work, I think that's interesting coming from a kind of circular economy perspective, because sometimes that's about fairness of the environment, of the world, of the people that inhabit it. Slightly going back to your childhood days, because I'm interested in that a little bit. Were you treated disproportionately unfair because you were a son of the headmaster to prove a point, or did you feel like, actually, I can see his fairness even with me?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of my relationship with my dad and how I was treated by my dad, I think that was the thing that that really resonated with me, was that I was treated fairly by him. I think sometimes there was, and I think the thing that used to frustrate me was from, you know, peers and other kids and potentially other teachers, but there was almost a, you know, because the world is nepotistic, that there's an assumption that, you know, if Chris does well, gets a good mark or whatever, oh well, it's because the teacher, you know, doesn't want to annoy their boss or whatever. But I always had, you know, very sort of strong belief, and, you know, and I was a good kid, so I wasn't maybe challenging him as much as I could have done. But I think that was the, you know, something I saw as unfair was the sort of, I'm being sort of unfairly sort of challenged by this, in terms of people thinking that I'm getting a foot up when I'm actually not, and I wasn't being held back or you know, being sort of that sort of pushing back against a perception of preference, you know, so I actually get treated more harshly. I don't think that was the case, but I think he did a pretty good job of it, I think.
Nice. I think he did as well.
I think also I guess it's also kind of something, because it's kind of quite a big part of me, is that, you know, there's times where you know, if you want an easy life, or you know, perhaps there's a sort of opportunity to, you know, to not say something, even, you know, if there's somebody closer to you who has done something that is unfair to someone's not close to you, you know, I would always you know, sort of speak up or you know, make a point of that, because I don't think you get to sort of, you know, you choose when you sort of you sort of bring that into play. You know, if you really believe that something's unfair, then it's unfair all the time. Yes. It's not just, oh well, this is an awkward when conversation, so I'll just not I'll not choose now as an opportunity to do that. So I think that's got me into a bit of hot water sometimes, but I wouldn't be the person that I am if I was dodging that kind of thing. So I'm okay with that.
So leading up to 2015, is that when you started Edinburgh Tool Library? 2014?
That is correct.
2015.
We existed in 2014 and opened in 2015.
Yeah, same. So leading up to that point, what did you do? Did you go to university? What did you do there? And then what did you do post-university? And then what were the steps that led you to wanting to start up the Edinburgh Tool Library?
So my educational background's in environmental science and forest ecology, strangely enough, back to the trees. So I did an undergraduate degree in Stirling, and did a bit of travelling, you know, worked a lot of dull jobs, you know, sort of working for other people, working for companies. Went back and did a master's in forest ecology at Edinburgh University, which kind of brought me to live in Edinburgh for the first time. And then I went away travelling again. When I came back, I started working in the third sector, working for various different charities, more on the sort of service side of things. But when so my sort of last, I'm not going to say proper job because this is a proper job, but my last job working for somebody else was working as part of Enable Scotland, which is a national charity working with people with learning disabilities. It was like a campaigning organisation, and I was working in sort of supported employment stuff. So it's quite nice at that point that you know, my sort of educational stuff that I'd you know, basically left behind a few years behind before, came back into play, and was, you know, there's a strong environmental side of the Edinburgh Tool Library, but also the kind of idea of creating opportunities for people who society is unfair to. There's a kind of thread running through there, that we're also able to offer that as well, and be part of what we do. So it's kind of one of those classic university degrees that you think, was I just messing around for 4 years and is this ever going to come in? But actually, sort of a long time down the line, it's actually become relevant. It's great.
We'll get there in the end. At some point. Speaking of random or worse jobs, can you tell us your worst job and maybe what you took away from it?
I worked for an insurance company at one point, and I mean the main thing I took away was that the idea of working for the man. I very much felt like a tiny cog in a big money making machine, and very much didn't enjoy that. And just kind of, I think when you work in that kind of world, you sort of see behind the facade of friendly friendly marketing materials and all the rest of it, and it just made me feel really gross. And I remember a colleague talking about how they were delighted because they successfully not paid out a claim to an old lady because she without knowing had got some sort of modification on her Nissan Micra, and she hadn't declared it, and so they didn't pay out a massive insurance claim.
Right?
And I just thought, oh great, good for you. What's the and it really made me feel kind of gross, and that was actually when I decided I wanted to go back into education, because it was as much driven by not wanting to be in that world as and I never went back into the sort of corporate thing. That's all third sector from then on.
Well, that was a good
I
good
got
job
out
for that way.
Yeah.
I guess if you don't know what you don't like, it's just as important as
I
definitely
I mean, think with my background in supported employment, sometimes we'd be arranging work placements and visits for things with people, and they're sometimes people would be quite disappointed when they went and did something and they're like, oh, I hated it, but I think sometimes ticking off or crossing something off your list of, I was wondering about this, that can be productive as well. I've actually experienced this and I know I definitely don't want to do that. Well, that's one less thing to wonder about. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, and especially if we have young listeners, we're always thinking about them, kind of knowing that those crappy jobs are going to teach you something. Not to get stuck there, but
it just feels like failure at the time.
Sometimes. It's sometimes really hard to process, but I mean, I'm never going to wonder if I want to work in it for an insurance company.
But it goes back to the values as well. That really kind of highlighted it's important for you to have value-based work. It's not just that that maybe it was boring and you were sitting inside, and those other aspects that you probably didn't like either. But it'd be good to hear about the kind of biggest risk that you've taken to date around your kind of working life. I
mean, I think working in the third sector every day is a risk. And there's an uncertainty of sort of long-term planning, and even thinking about things too far in the future. You do tend to, particularly as the sort of person, the buck stops with me, and so you do live a little hand to mouth, and I think even going into that kind of side of things is tricky, and I think I'm privileged in that the risk to me sort of in terms of my family support and everything that was around me was minimized because I had that support in place. And there's definitely some people who, if they totally justifiably maybe don't want to take that risk in sort of jumping off. So when I sort of quit my last job to focus on this, that was a big sort of is this going to go anywhere? Is this going to be, am I going to come crawling back in 6 months' time? If grants don't come through, or is this a completely harebrained scheme that nobody's interested in? So that's definitely a risk. But also I think I also kind of think if you don't risk something, it's a bit like what I was saying there about ticking off the sort of the bad jobs. It's a similar thing. Is you've got to, when you're hypothesizing about what you want the future to be in a particular area or a particular job or a particular industry, you're hypothesizing about something. So you're taking a risk that this is what it could look like, or this is what people want, or and sometimes you're wrong, but I think what I like about where we've got to in this kind of journey with the tool library is that we're now big enough to take risks and for them not to work, and to use that as something to learn from, rather than
it being the end.
That's the end, exactly, that's a sort of dead stop on the line. It's actually, it's just a deviation, or it's, we didn't know about these factors that influence it. So it's quite, taking risks it can be scary, but it's also quite rewarding, and when sometimes they pay off, and sometimes that's great.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about do you have 5-year plan? What's your vision for the future for yourself, but also for Edinburgh Tool Library?
Well, we've just done a plan for 2028 for the Tool Library, so
I'll
start with that, and then I'll quickly write a plan for myself for 5 years. Maybe we should take some more time about it. So what we want to do with the Tool Library, it kind of goes hand in hand with the sort of 2030 net zero plan with the stated plan of Edinburgh Council, but also there's a big push to sort of tackle poverty in the city, and that's both two things that are quite directly addressed by sharing of things. So the idea of a resource already existing in the community, and making the access to that resource as efficient as possible. It means that you don't have to, the example I would use would be, a drill. If you have 50 people who only occasionally need to use a drill, you don't need to create 50 drills. You just need to get one drill into 50 people's hands. So, that's that. With that comes the fact that that's one drill that needs to be manufactured. That's one set of components need to be put together. That's one drill that needs to be transported instead of 50. So you're immediately reducing the carbon footprint of the item, and the carbon footprint associated with the use is a fraction of the actual lifetime of the item itself. So using it more does not make much of a difference at all. But also that means that there's 49 people who aren't spending 120 quid buying a drill that they use once. And so with the strategy in Edinburgh, what we're trying to do is put more locations that people can collect tools. So both giving more people access to equipment, but also reducing the distance that they need to travel to come and get it. So it's goes hand in hand with the sort of 20-minute neighbourhood idea. So we want people to walk down the street to borrow a tool. We don't want them, we have members from the other side of Edinburgh that may well, drive across the city to come and get a couple of tools and then go back. And, when it comes to a carbon side of things that's obviously creating a carbon footprint in itself, but that's also assuming that someone's got access to a vehicle, and there's lots of problematic things with that. So what we want to do is have, we're aiming for 15 locations around the city, across the city, so anywhere within the bypass and the sea, and they will be served by 4 sort of tool hubs, so tool libraries, and the idea will be that the satellite locations, as we're calling them, will be sort of pop-up locations, so that we don't need permanent spaces for them. They'll be in public buildings, libraries, that kind of thing. So that's our aim for 5 years. So we're currently looking at the sort of the outcomes and the planning and what we need to get in place in terms of resources, partnerships, things like that. But that's where we want to get to. We're sort of working through the plan, and we're working on the sort of baseline assessment of where we are in terms of the things that we're tackling on that kind of journey. So we'll have a sort of baseline assessment hopefully by the start of the new year, and then we know where we're at, and then we can sort of plan where we're going.
How many volunteers do you have at the minute?
We've got just over 50, I think. So that a range of, some people are the people that you will meet if you come and borrow a tool from the tool library, the sort of face-to-face volunteers, but we've got people who help out in the workshops. We've got people who help out with data crunching and graphics. We've got folks that come and do volunteer builds. We've got a couple of guys who come in every week to help with the preparation of all the reservations. And we actually, I think one thing that I'm really proud of with the tool library is that we have, because it's helpful to have almost volunteer roles identified. We have them, but we're also able to sort of create things for people who traditional volunteering might not work for, or that you know, if you have a very rigid kind of, this is what you do if you're a volunteer, you know, there needs to be a flexibility. So we when people come to us, we can say, well, you know, what are your skills, what are your interests, what do you want to get out of it, and maybe we can create something that suits that more, rather than just saying you have option A, B, or C.
And how many members?
Members, we've gotten just under 2,000. So yeah, we're sort of, we seem to be the if you rule out pandemics, it seems to increase around about 30% a year, membership year on year.
Brilliant.
In normal times.
Just so we plug, how do people join and what do they get?
So I mean, to join the tool library, you go on the website. It's the easiest way to do it, or you can pop into one of our locations. But it's £30, and you get access to all of our tools, which is, I think, pushing 3,000. You know, garden, DIY, painting, decorating, all that kind of stuff.
And that's £30 annually.
Annually,
right?
yeah, once a year.
So people know,
Yeah. Sometimes people are trying to pay every time they come in. No, it's £30 one off, and you also get access to both of our workshops as well. So you can, you know, we're not anticipating many people going to take a table saw home, but they can come into our workshop and use it, and you know, or you know, any of the bigger equipment. And there's volunteers in there that can help them and advise them and hold a bit of wood if they need it. You know, all that kind of stuff.
Amazing. So good. Okay, slight switch. I know I asked about your 5-year plan, but I want to ask you about your last state of flow, or the last time you had a feeling of awe.
I don't really know what the first bit means, so I'm going to go for the second bit.
Cool.
I think when our second kid, Mirren, was born, so both our kids were born at home, and yeah, like being there for the birth, and you know, I was in a state of awe with my wife, you know, and of the kind of, you know, what a body can do and produce and you know, put itself through, and also like I think I'm kind of in awe that, you know, somebody loves you enough to put themselves through that.
Twice.
Twice, and you know, second time knowing what was coming, and willing to do that again. You know, so and it's just you're the most amazing, you know, sort of. I'm not one for sort of fuzzy language and stuff, but it was kind of, you know, almost like spiritual kind of thing. Just watching this little, like somebody said to me afterwards, like, isn't it weird that, you know, when you went in the house, you know, there was 3 of you, so the 2 of us and our son, and then the next day you got up and there was 4 of you left next, and I'm like, God, that is insane.
It's
you know, it's
incredible.
like that they've just come from seemingly nowhere. It's fairly obvious where they were coming from. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. 'Cause I'm like, if he doesn't talk about his children's birth, I have to kick him under the table. Usually it's the other way around. People are more happy to talk about their state of flow than sense of awe. So that we appreciate that story. Thank you for sharing.
Problem. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.
To hear more about Tribe Porty and Keystone, you can find us on all social media platforms. Please head over to our website and subscribe to our newsletters, which includes monthly blogs to provide helpful insights into how we craft our work in life. This has been Working for Progress. We hope you join us again.